Hemlock is the new assault rifle from the medieval weapon set that's currently available from Snowflake Llamas and Save the World. I'm going to be taking a look at the weapon and giving you all some important information and a well-rounded review with my thoughts on it as well. As always, I'll be giving you guys the useful information and trying to make things as quick as possible, but I would also like to take some steps to really up the quality of my content, give you guys a little bit more information and depth on these weapons, and I'd really appreciate it if you guys would stick around to the end of the video, let me know what you guys think of this new approach, and then share any sort of suggestions you have to improve stuff even further. Before we begin though, I would like to remind you all, if you are interested in supporting me as a creator, you can use my creator code SPLITMRG in Fortnite, and all of my other social media links can be located in the description, but without further ado, let's begin. First, we will be covering all of the perk options for the Hemlock. For most weapons, these will be the same, but there are a few unique weapons that can't roll specific perks in the usual slot, so I will still mention these in my future videos. Starting with slot 1, you can roll damage, critical rating, crit damage, fire rate, and reload speed. For slot 2, you can roll magazine size, reload speed, stability, and durability. Slot 3, you can roll all of the elements: physical, energy, fire, nature, and water. For slot 4, you can get magazine size, critical rating, stability, and headshot damage. And then for slot 5, you can get damage once again, damage to miss monsters and bosses, critical damage, and then headshot damage once again. Slot 6 is capable of rolling your standard perks that we've been seeing, such as causes snare or causes affliction, but there are also a few new 6th perks that can roll as well. I got another Hemlock, and one of the new perks happens to be critical hits regain 2.64% of your damage dealt as shields. Once I have a full list of all of the new perks for this slot and what weapons they are particular to, I'll be sure to include them in my future videos, but it is possible to roll new 6th perks on this particular weapon set. As far as the overall base stats for the weapon go, they are as follows. For damage, it's a base of 26, critical chance is at 15%, critical damage at 75%, the weapon has a fire rate of 11, a base magazine size of 35, maximum range at 4,096, and 60 total impact. As I said in the beginning, I want to take some steps to improve my content, and one new thing I would like to add is some fun facts. These are things I want to add into my weapon reviews, and this is what I mean by that. The Hemlock comes in at number 23 in base damage across all assault rifles that are currently in the game. It comes in at number 8 for fire rate, being beat out by 6 other assault rifles with a fire rate of 12 and one with a fire rate of 14.16. And for impact, it comes in at number 25 out of all assault rifles, which is pretty normal for a higher fire rate weapon. With a range of 4,096, the weapon will start to see a pretty significant damage fall off. It will do maximum damage in a point blank range of up to 2 tiles. From 2 to 5 tiles, you'll do a total of 30% reduced damage. From 5 to 8 tiles, you'll see a more drastic drop off of 80% of your total damage, and then from 8 to 15 tiles, you'll be dealing next to no damage. And for those curious about the range and why I'm mentioning tiles, 512 range is equal to 1 tile in game. If you set down just a regular floor piece, that is equal to 512 range across. So you take whatever the range is on your particular weapon, divide that by 512, and that is the maximum effective range that you will be able to do actual damage. Now moving on to another stat here, the recoil on the Hemlock, despite a higher fire rate, is actually incredibly manageable. ADS and hipfire starts with a rather quick but small upwards recoil, and it's all in a tight cone, and it stays in the same spot for the rest of the magazine. In point blank range on larger targets like smashers and huskies, this will be incredibly easy to utilize, but as you get to the farther ranges, it would be more beneficial to fire in smaller short bursts. The Hemlock is also a weapon with a rather low headshot multiplier, coming in at 1.25 times the base damage, so this is a weapon that really should be rolled with critical rating and damage perks. The only reason to run headshot damage and base damage perks over crit would be if you're hitting a very large amount of your shots as headshots, but that isn't always going to be something that's possible, so I personally recommend a crit build for this weapon. My current setup for the weapon being used in the review is crit damage, magazine size, physical for the element, which I will be changing to fire once I get the last little bit of reperk I need, crit rating, and crit damage with a snare perk in the 6th slot. If you are wanting to run 2 crit damage perks and 1 crit rating, your first perk needs to be crit damage, and then crit rating and damage for the 4th and 5th. Hemlock is one of the few weapons that doesn't roll crit damage in the 4th slot, so you can get your 2nd crit damage from the 1st slot, and with 1 legendary crit rating perk, Hemlock is sitting at 43% total crit rating. This is what I have as of the current weapon that I'm reviewing. For recommended hero setups, I use Urban Assault Headhunter as my main hero, so I get the additional fire rate and reload buffs. For support, I use either Master Grenadier or Wukong for the 24% additional assault weapon damage, and then my tactical is Raven for the explosive rounds. Sergeant Jonesy is also another alternative for support if you're wanting to get a little bit more crit damage from your gun, but in this particular instance, I prefer a flat damage increase. The support and tactical slots are really just down to your preference, so you run what you really wish to run, but I will always offer some suggestions in my reviews. All in all, Hemlock is an okay gun. Things such as the Silent Spectre, Wraith, and the Bundle Bus, these are always going to be powerhouses in the assault rifle category, but the Hemlock can still hold its own against these weapons. It's decent for killing mist monsters, and it's also capable of quick group clear due to a high fire rate and a pretty decent magazine size if you decide to roll with magazine size as a perk. The only downfall to this weapon is its range, which caters to a more up-close playstyle, and if you want to get the most out of the weapon, that's how you're going to have to go about it, but it can still be used at range if you choose to do so. To close out the review, I'd give the Hemlock a 7 out of 10. It's definitely worth using if it's perked properly, but if you're already using things like the Wraith and the Bundle Bus that I mentioned before, you can easily pass on this weapon and not miss too terribly much. Newer players that happen to acquire this and you don't have the weapons I mentioned before, definitely hold on to it, as it will be a rather powerful weapon to have until you get something better overall. But that brings us to the end of the video. If you have any weapon suggestions for me to review, whether it's a base game weapon or a current event one, let me know in the comment section below and I'll see what I can put together. The current format of these weapon reviews is what I'll be going with for future videos, along with my hero reviews as well, giving you guys all of the useful information and recommendations, but even then I can still miss out on some information that others might deem useful. If you have any suggestions on additional info you would like me to implement, let me know in the comments below and I'll look for a way to implement that into future content. As always, if you guys enjoyed today's video or found it helpful, a like is greatly appreciated, and if you happen to be new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more gaming content. My name is Morgan, and thank you all for watching Split Screen.